This video will cover Reclaim 101 basics on properly designing and setting up a pure water reclaim system in underground tanking. Pipe connections, electrical connections, and basic water flow will be presented to allow you to better understand the operation of reclaiming water. Pure Water does not supply the tanks, but they are typically precast concrete vaults that are sourced locally. There are many different configurations of tanks that are available. Whether they are side by side or straight in a line, the connections and water levels will still remain the same. You should also consider the location of the tanks. Try to locate the tanks as close as possible to the reclaim system to minimize the length of the suction line. The water entering the tank on the right side is considered tank 1, followed by tank 2, and the last being tank 3, or referred to as the suction tank. Now let's look at typical reclaim tank dimensions. Most tanks we come across are about 12 feet long, 6 feet deep, and about 6 feet wide. This would allow the inside to be about 5 feet long, 5 feet deep, and about 5 feet wide in each chamber. Using these dimensions, this would give us about 750 gallons per chamber, or 1,500 gallons for one tank. For in-bay automatic washes, using a PW100 or PW200, a minimum of 3,000 gallons is required. This can be achieved by using two tanks that are each 1,500 gallons. A two-tank setup is the most basic setup for reclaim tanking. Using a two-tank setup, the recirculation line is plumbed to the first tank, second chamber. For tunnel washes, using a PW300 or PW350, we would require a minimum of 4,500 gallons, which can be achieved by using three 1,500-gallon tanks. For a three-tank setup, the only difference between a two-tank and a three-tank setup is one tank is added to the middle. The recirculation line for a three-tank would be like the two-tank setup, with the line plumbed to the first tank, second chamber. Though three tanks or 4,500 gallons is the minimum requirement, we would recommend using four tanks, which would give you about 6,000 gallons of storage. In a tunnel wash using a PW400, a minimum of 6,000 gallons is required. When using four tanks, you would have two tanks added in the middle of a two-tank setup. In this case, the only plumbing change would require the recirculation line to be plumbed into the second tank, first chamber. When using larger pure water reclaim systems, the tanking should be reviewed by New Wave Industries to justify the sizing and requirements. Here we will discuss the piping connections on the tanks. All of the connections should be Schedule 80 PVC. First, we have a connection, typically a 6-inch pipe, that is feeding from the wash water into the underground tanks. Next, we have our interconnects between each compartment and tank. Whether you have an ozone system or a sparger system, the recirculation line is to be plumbed in either the first tank, second chamber, or the second tank, first chamber. The very last tank is where the suction lines are to be plumbed. A 1-inch conduit for a low-level float, and lastly, a connection to sewer. Please take note that this line requires a backflow preventer to prevent unwanted sewage from backing up into the reclaimed tanks. Each tank should have a baffle which creates 2 compartments per tank. Some tanks may have 3 baffles, which is okay. The baffle should go from the very top to the very bottom of the tank. This will help separate the solids and keep the floatable materials closer to tank 1. In between each baffle, an interconnect with a T and an elbow, or downturn, should be placed around mid-level of the water level. This would allow the cleanest water to pass through to each compartment and tank. Connecting the tanks together requires a high-level pipe connection with a drop-down to that mid-water level. Again, this will help prevent floatable materials from passing through each tank and compartment. The reclaim system is built on a small footprint. It measures 4 feet wide, just over 7 feet tall, and 16 inches deep. For those of you who do not have a large bay door in the equipment room and have a standard door, the reclaim system's ozone cabinet can be flipped down so you can easily push the reclaim system through the door without having to tip the equipment. After removing 2 bolts, the ozone cabinet can be flipped via its hinge. Once you get the equipment into the room, you can flip the ozone back over and replace the 2 bolts. Be sure to be gentle while flipping the cabinet. The ozone cells within the cabinet are fragile. When the ozone cabinet is flipped down, it measures 4 feet wide, about 6 feet tall, and just over 2.5 feet wide. There are 5 plumbing connections to be made on the reclaim system: a suction line, a recirculation line, an underflow line, a freshwater or city connection, and lastly, the reclaim water out to the wash equipment. All of the reclaim plumbing should land on the right side of the reclaim system. You will have a suction line, a spare suction line in the case that there is an issue with the other, a recirculation line, an underflow line, and a conduit for a low-level float connection. On the wall or close to the reclaim system, you will need a freshwater connection, and lastly, the product water or reclaim water line that will feed to your wash applications. Do not reduce this line size until reaching the wash equipment to prevent flow restriction and pressure reduction. The reclaim system is pre-wired and is pretty close to a plug-and-play design. A single-phase connection is required, also a 3-phase connection. The low-level float connection is terminated on terminals 1 and 2. You will need at least 1 activation from the wash to tell the reclaim system you are demanding reclaim water. This can land on any of the 3 activations. Terminals 3 and 4 are the first activation, terminals 5 and 6 are the second, and terminals 7 and 8 are the third activation. You can also wire more than 1 activation. To review, the single-phase power can either be 110 VAC or 220 VAC. 3-phase power can be 208/230 VAC, 460, or 575 VAC. There is 1 float connection, and at least 1 voltage activation from the wash is required. This can be 24 volt DC, 24 volt AC, 110 volt AC, or 220 volt AC. Choosing your chemistry while reclaiming water is important. The compatibility with reclaimed water and your chemistry should not be overlooked. 2 items we don't want in reclaimed water are MSO, or mineral seal oil, and silicone from tire shine applications. Please refer to your chemistry provider and discuss your options of using reclaim-friendly chemicals. If you have a tunnel with a tire shine, we want to prevent the tire shine from entering the reclaim tanks and mixing with the water. Most, but not all tire shine chemicals have silicone in the product, which ends up making a goopy mess of the reclaimed water. Since it is hard to remove, we recommend placing a dam within the trench and allowing the tire shine/water mix to drain out to a sewer connection. If you have a water softener, the brine discharge should be plumbed into this side of the dam as well. The rest of the wash water, including the final rinses near the end, can all be reclaimed and flow back into the underground tanks. Feeding reclaimed water into holding tanks is not recommended. The reclaimed water sitting in the holding tanks will become stagnant and start to grow unnecessary bacterial growth. Instead, we want to feed the reclaimed water directly into the pumps. This allows the holding tank above to become a freshwater backup or bypass should the reclaim system not feed reclaimed water. By simply adding a T connection and a check valve to the system, you can feed the reclaimed water direct, and if there is not enough water coming from the reclaim system, the gravity of the fresh water in the tank will push the check valve open and feed the pump. The reclaim system and tanking require the attention of the site work contractors, electricians, plumber, and general contractor. New Wave Industries is willing to assist in any way possible, but the installation team of contractors is key to getting the tanking, plumbing, and electrical work done correctly. Hopefully this video has helped illustrate the requirements of a pure water reclaim system.